All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Joy Reveals podcast. Today, I have an amazing special guest for you. I cannot wait for you to meet her. I literally found her on Facebook because she popped up onto my suggested people to follow. So I started following her and fell in love with her content, fell in love with her, and we have a lot of things in common with her living in Utah. I have kids living in Utah. She has 7 kids. I have 8 kids, as you guys know. And so I'm just going to read a few things about her with her bio here, so you can get to know her a little bit better. But she, again, like I say, is a mother of 7. Wow, look at her. And a certified life coach with advanced training in nervous system resilience. She is currently pursuing her master's coach certification and is the creator of Made for More, a 12-week program where she teaches her signature framework, the Intentionality Method. Michele helps women of faith move from being reactionary into intentional through grounding practices, mindset work. She loves quiet early morning walks, another thing we have in common, and dancing in the living room with her kids, another thing we have in common. Michele and her husband Kyle are raising their family in Vineyard, Utah, where, yes, the house is often a mess, but that's the point. She believes you can show up messy and still be intentional and create a life you love. I love that so much. And I know we just read your bio, but I do want you to kind of go a little bit into your story and like who you
Mhm.
are and like how you became into this amazing space that you're in with your intentional things and the things that you stand for.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. It's fun to reflect on my journey and what has gotten me to this point. When you ask, tell me a little bit about yourself, I always center and ground and begin with, I am a woman of faith. I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. And then second, I'm a mother. And I think those are when we put those kind of at the forefront, then everything just kind of clicks and falls into place. So, along with that, I do coaching, as you mentioned, reading in my bio. And my journey really has taken me through different businesses in my life as, being a young mom. And now most of my children are, grown and independent. My youngest is 8 and my oldest is 21. And really what I hope to do is put good in the world. Somewhere in the middle of running these businesses, I recognize 2 things. One, that doing things outside of motherhood actually helps me become a better mother. Learning things that would help refine myself helped me be the mother that I wanted to be. And I had something good to offer the world. Like, I have goodness to offer my children, but I have goodness to offer the world. And what better thing can women of faith do than show up to put good in the world? So I do that through my coaching program and
I
through what
love
I
that.
call the intentionality method.
I love that. In a world where life is a little bit crazy, as we know right now, we have so many things on the news and I don't know, just we know that this is going to happen in the last days, as we both
Mhm.
know. And to hear you talk about putting goodness in the world, it just makes my heart warm because I'm just like, that's awesome. Like we have good people in the world and
Right.
a lot of things that can be offered and everything. And one thing that I love, I saw on one of your videos that there were 4 things that you said that you would love about that your kids to know, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so what are those? Now that you're talking about being a mother, and I love that too because, I think that's like one of the most, if not the most important calling in the world because, we're putting the kids out there, we're trying to instill the goodness, like you say, into our children,
Uh-huh.
into other people. But as we like even seeing my grandkids, like seeing my kids, now seeing my grandkids and being able to spend time with them and knowing that just little things even in the daytime that I can teach them, like, oh,
Uh-huh.
you forgot to, maybe put that in the trash after you ate or whatever.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
little things that we teach our children. But I would love to hear that because I didn't get to watch that one. Like, what are the 4 things that you want, what was the title of that? Do you remember that one, that
I
one
do
reel?
the
Okay,
funny thing is I
perfect.
totally know what you're talking about, but I honestly don't even remember what I wrote.
That's okay. That's
Maybe
okay.
we'll both look that up afterwards, but,
We'll look it up, but maybe you have stuff that you can
yeah,
think of that you would like,
exactly.
to share about your kids. Like, what do you want to
Yeah,
have your kids to be like?
absolutely. Yeah, and to me, I mean, that is intentionality defined, which
Mm.
is like, what do I want to do in my life? How do I want to show up as a mother? What do I want to teach them? Like, what's the outcome we want to have at the end of it? And so I think taking some time to consider that, and it might shift and change from time to time. That's why I maybe don't necessarily remember what I put in there, but like being intentional in that way. What do I want my children to know? So if you were to ask me right now in this moment, like what would I want my children to know? First and foremost, I would want them to know that you never go wrong following the Savior. Like anchoring in Him is anchoring in peace, in safety, in joy, that as you make Him your foundation, as Helaman 5:12 says about having Jesus Christ be your foundation, that no matter what comes, what trials, hardships, the craziness of the world that you referred to, if we're anchored in Jesus Christ, that we will always have a source of peace, a source of hope, a reason to have joy. That's something I really want to help my children see, as well as other women, that even in the hard, we can find joy even in the hard. And I love that your podcast is called Joy Reveals. Like just that focus on joy. And I think I often think about how what we talk about in a gospel context is sometimes a little different than what the world is saying. So that would be the first thing. Um, and the second thing is just to remember that they are agents unto themselves, that we have the ability to show up and respond rather than just react or just be victim to our circumstances. Like we have that agency to choose whatever. It's one of the most beautiful gifts that God has given us, is to use our agency. And what I teach my children, and also in my program, is that the very first place we access that agency is in our thoughts, what we choose to think or believe. And that is kind of the catalyst, or the pivotal point of, then everything flows from that, how we feel, the way in we show up, and then the results that we create for ourselves, right?
I love that.
I would say the third thing I would want my children to know is that compassion is always the way. It's always the answer, because I feel like the Savior led from compassion. He showed up from compassion. And compassion is not permissiveness. Compassion is actually a catalyst for growth, because when we feel seen, heard, known, validated, understood, loved, regardless of what we've done or not done, there's something within us that wants to rise up and
I love
level up
that.
and be better, draw more to the Savior, become more like Him. And so I think that version of love is the way to growth, the way to moving
I
forward.
love that.
Right?
I love that.
And then I might say that the last thing I want my children to know is that kindness is like just still in that compassion phase. Like I just want them, more than anything, I want to raise good human beings, that, and it just so happens that the best way they can be a good human being is becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ and following
Right.
His example. It's like the perfect way to be a good human being. But just like that idea of like, who are we? Not just going through the motions, but
Mm.
have we become someone who is kind, who looks out for others, who helps others, who tries to see everyone in the best light possible? Honestly, the work that I do has created a level of understanding and compassion and, just softness towards people and in their shortcomings, that I just love leaning into. And so I would love for my children to be that way as well.
I love that. I love every single one of the things you said, and one of the things that I loved, I wrote it down actually because I was watching one of your videos and you actually mentioned it, so we're gonna kinda dive into that, where you said, "Joy can be found in the hard." And I
Mhm,
love that because, as you know, I love the saying, "We can do hard things," right? And
mhm.
that's actually a saying we say a lot in this house when,
Yeah,
"It's
yeah.
hard, mom, it's hard to do this, it's hard to do that, but we can do hard things."
Yeah, yeah. My
But
kids
I
my kids
you
hate it when I say that. They're like,
I
"Don't
know.
say that again. I don't
I
wanna do
know.
hard things." I'm like, "But it's
Exactly.
true."
But, it's so true, like, I've been finding my that to be something that I've really leaned into this year. 2025 has been kind of a tough year for me, not kind of, it
Mhm.
has been
Yeah.
one of the toughest, if not the toughest year, and just in every different ways, business,
Mhm,
just a lot of family stuff, a lot of just different things, and
mhm,
I've had to tell myself kind of, like, in this particular thing where we're talking about that, where what am I learning from this circumstance? What am I learning from this
mhm,
trial, And it's
mhm,
helped me become a better person. It's helped
mhm,
me to become a stronger person, to
mhm,
when I ask myself that, because like as we know, like we have things that happen to us on a daily basis and we're just kind of like, oh, sometimes we're just like, why is this happening? And as I've learned this particular principle and like taking a step back and saying, oh, when that trial was over, I'm like, look what I learned from that.
right, right.
So, I know, like, as we go through life and, like, as you're in your teachings of your coaching program, which we're definitely gonna talk about here, and you mentioned, like, you can choose your thoughts, and I would
Mhm,
love for you to go more into, like, as I know in our Joy Reveals podcast, one of the things that is the thing that we talk about a lot is becoming the best version of ourselves. And
right.
as mothers, we're talking about becoming, like, teaching our children, and then also, like you were saying, teaching other women. So, like, as what are some things that you would say? I mean, you've mentioned a few already, like even just talking about your own kids, but I
Mhm,
wrote down here, like, what are some things that you probably, and it can go hand in hand with the things that you teach in your program, but, like,
mhm,
would you say on, there's a lot of people that kind of are like, well, I just don't feel like doing this, or I know I do want this, but what is the difference between somebody who says, okay, here's the goal that I want to do,
mhm,
and they go, I want that, but they're not willing to really put in the work or not really willing to do what it takes? How is that, like, I guess, versus somebody who makes the goal, makes says this is what I want to do and then follows through? There's got to be some kind of element in between this person and this person of why this person is progressing, you know?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so what would you say are some characteristics, I guess, of somebody who is really striving to become the best version of themselves? And, like, what are a few, like, I guess, attributes or characteristics you would say that help that person, people that
Yeah.
to become that way?
Yeah. And, even if people don't do my program and learn the things that I teach, what I teach is just my version of pulling information together and presenting it in a certain way, right? So some people might be able to just like muster up the courage, or they see the vision, or they catch the vision, or they're inspired to like change. I think a lot of times, though, this is something that goes back to protective patterns that I teach about, just how
Mhm.
our humanness and our human tendencies and how our brain and body is wired. It's wired to avoid discomfort. Like, that's why we don't want to get up and put on the gym clothes and go to the gym. We just rather hit the snooze button and go back to sleep. It's so much more pleasurable to just sleep than do the hard, right? We're kind of wired for that. Um, but here's what often changes things. It's when the discomfort of what might be in the future outweighs the discomfort of the now.
Mm,
And we have to recognize that, if there's something that we just begin to see, like, if I don't make this shift, there's something harder and bigger that I'm gonna have to work with. When I teach my kids, we do hard things. I teach them it's hard either way. It's hard to make yourself get up and go to the gym. It's also hard to just live unhealthy when it catches up with you, right? It's a matter of choosing your hard and whether we give in to, the little discomforts right now or the bigger discomforts later. And I think those of us who make the change, we have awareness of what we want to create. We have that desire to be intentional, even if you're not saying those words. It's like you recognize, there's something more for me. There's something I need to do. So when you talk about characteristics of these type of people who are trying to become a better version of themselves, it is people who are willing to do discomfort, willing to delay gratification, willing to do the hard, willing to expend energy, knowing that it will create something good, And I really think there's power in understanding those protective patterns that I teach about. That's just like it's how our body is wired to conserve energy, to avoid discomfort, to seek pleasure. It actually at its base form keeps us in survival, right? And I always think, the way that God created us wasn't a mistake. It's not like the nervous system and, those human motivational triad is what it's called, that tendency to just want to avoid discomfort. It's not a mistake. It provides that base level thing of survival. We can't learn and grow and have a family and learn the gospel principles and, be tested and have all these if we don't survive. Like
Right.
we have to start with that, but the thing is we don't want to just stay there. We have
Right.
to understand how it's protecting us, it's keeping us safe, it's doing its job, but there's so much more beyond that. And so I think just having awareness of that can help us learn to overcome it so that we can step beyond it.
I love that. And I love how you talk about, you said in there, like the discomfort, like, okay, I ran a marathon and it was
Mhm.
hard.
Right.
And I just wanted to do something hard in my life. Because when I
Love it.
ran that, it's like, I feel like that helped me to realize that if I put my mind to do something, which I'm
Yes.
kind of like that,
Yes.
then I can do it. And that's always been a staple for me to go,
I
I ran
love
a
it.
marathon. I can do this,
Yeah.
and when hard things happen in my life, and all of us are going to have things that are happen to us, whether it's like I say in business or in family, or we're going to have things that happen. And how are we going to react to that? And is it going to be uncomfortable? Definitely, so that's a wonderful thing. I was also thinking about, like, when what is one thing that you mentioned, like the snooze button. Like, what there's I love your drive, so I would love to hear, like, your routine in the day. Like, what do you do to
Yeah.
keep, because you obviously are healthy, you're healthy and beautiful, and you have 7 children and all the things, and
Yeah.
you're doing something right. So I'm sure people would like to hear, like, okay, from the time that you wake, like, what is a day in the life of Michele Reyes look like, with raising your 7 kids and tending to
Mhm.
your husband, your business, even yourself,
Yeah.
callings in the church, things that your life is busy, but yet
Yeah.
somehow, like, you probably get more done in a day than, a lot of people do. So, like, kind of share this, like, because to me, I'm kind of like, I'm thinking in my head that this is a day of success. Because, like, and I know you're going to have your off days when we don't feel good and stuff, but, like, what are some things that you do that maybe some of the listeners can hear and
Yeah.
say, oh, she said one thing I'm going
Yeah.
to do differently?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I have to qualify that I'm very human, and in the process of progressing myself, I have my shortcomings just as much as the next person. Like you read in my bio, like sometimes my house is a mess, often it's a mess, and that's okay. But I really do lean into this idea that we learn in the scriptures by small and simple things are great things brought to pass, right? And so I really do make those efforts in small ways. And this is what I would leave with your listeners. This is something that I teach in my program. I call it the daily ground. And
Mm.
it's this idea, like, let's swap out the daily grind for the daily ground. And the daily ground is an acronym, um, GROUND. So it's things that I learned about in my nervous system resilience training that are, scientifically proven to help us regulate our nervous system. Because and regulating your nervous system is all about just grounding anchoring in safety, being able to access that higher level of thinking, being able to be intentional, show up as that better version of ourselves, be willing to do the hard things, right? It begins with establishing that safety, right? So the daily ground is G stands for get sleep. Now,
Mm.
it sounds so simple. All of these are going to sound rather simple, and nothing's going to be revelatory. It's all things that we know. But I think the more that you recognize it is those small and simple things that create momentum or create an increased capacity, and the more we're willing to um, not only do the hard but do the simple. The scriptures
Yeah.
talk about that too. Like, it's such a simple, sometimes like living the gospel is so simple, and yet we don't do it. So anyway, the first one is get sleep, and that has to do not only with the quantity of sleep but with the quality of sleep, and establishing patterns so that our body is on a rhythm. Like this,
Mm.
it serves us so well to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time and get on that rhythm. And connected to that is the R, which is rhythms and routines. Getting that first early morning sunshine,
Mm.
the first hour of the day into our eyes. And I like doubling up my effort. So I go for a morning walk that first hour of the day, get that sunshine, get that movement. You'll hear the next part here that's part of the daily ground. So rhythms and routines is that early morning sunshine, setting our circadian rhythm, signaling to our brain it's time to wake up, it's time to move, it's time to get active. Okay. The O in the daily ground is oneness. And that has to do with the fact that we are wired for connection. So daily in my routines, I establish ways that I can connect with God, with myself, and with others. Little routines that I've created with my children that helps me connect with them on a
Mm.
daily basis. That looks like me being intentional about that hour from when they wake up and go to school. I'm focused on them. The hour after they return home from school, I'm focused on them. I'm establishing those connections. It's amazing
Mm.
how connected we can feel just sitting in the kitchen, getting a snack, listening to them talk
Being
about their
present.
day, being
Mhm.
present. Yeah.
Yes.
And so those little moments of connection are good for them to regulate their nervous system, but also for me as I create that connection, as I'm reminded about my purpose and meaning in this life. So
Yeah.
the O is the oneness or connection. And, daily scriptures and prayer all feed into that. All are a part of that. The U stands for uppercut. And that one's kind of a stretch, but that has to do with movement, right? The more that we know that moving our bodies, exercising, even just walking 15 to 30 minutes, an hour if you have that luxury a day, is going to benefit your whole well-being. It releases stress, it grounds you. It just movement is important in how we show up. And then the N has to do with nutrition. It's not news that how we fuel our body, both by hydrating it and also eating healthy foods,
Mm.
affects the way that we show up. Like if we're just living on Twinkies and a Diet Coke, like we're not going to be able to show up in our full truest self. So prioritizing that, right? And then D stands for de-stressing plus healthy stress. When you mentioned doing a marathon, that was part of increasing your capacity. And that's what this is all about, is increasing capacity to
Mm.
to to be more. It's not necessarily to do more, because it's not about adding more things to
Right.
your
We
plate.
already have enough things to do.
We already have enough things to do, but we want to increase our capacity to be patient, our capacity to have compassion, our capacity to be present, our capacity to create. Like, that's all of the purpose of increasing capacity. And so when you do things that add a certain level of stress, that indicates to your brain, I am capable of doing hard things. I'm
Mm.
incapable of accomplishing something. Like, that's a part of the daily ground. And so whether that's doing things on the daily or, doing things cumulatively, that's a part of increasing our capacity. And the de-stress is, incorporating practices that help bring that stress level back to zero. If we don't do that, it just compounds upon itself. And that's where we start finding ourselves feeling snappy and easily
Mm.
irritated. Our capacity to handle stress becomes shortened, and it's like a thin bandwidth, right? Increasing our capacity is increasing that bandwidth to be able to handle hard things. All of a sudden, things that our children do or say aren't going to trigger us so much into, that fight or flight or freeze, whatever that might be. So these are just daily practices that I incorporate. And I know that, GROUND, 6 things might seem like a lot, but I literally do them in the first hour and the ending hour of my day.
Wow.
Half an hour to an hour.
Yeah.
It's not always a full hour. It's like, okay, I get up, I do that morning walk, I Voxer my closest friend and feel that connection. I co-regulate, I'm moving my body, I'm getting that sunshine. I take part of my walk to pray, to connect with God. All of it is just, it can be integrated, and you can do the daily ground and just really feel ready to be present and show up as the best version of yourself.
Oh my goodness. I love that so much because many of the listeners know we talk so much about, like what you say, waking up, getting the sunshine, and my
Mhm,
husband and I do that every morning. We've made
mhm.
that
A
part of
practice.
our a
Yeah.
practice, and then we'll do a little bit of. We found this 13 or 14-minute Tai Chi routine that we do together, and
Love it.
if there's anything, we find that walking. We put our phones away and we're connected and we're talking about
Mhm.
the kids and talking about each other. And,
Yeah.
and I love that. And I love the getting the sunshine first morning. I was just in
Yeah.
Utah actually last week with a wedding,
Yeah.
and it was beautiful. We went walking in Lehigh in the mountains and everything, and just getting that fresh air, with the
Yeah.
kids and everything. And I love that so much. So we we're going to talk here toward the very end here about, of course, you've talked a little bit about your ground methods. I didn't even know that, and everything you said is everything I stand for. I love
Uh-huh.
everything that you
Yeah.
just said. But the intentionality method that you created, that, I guess, is that the basis of the whole ground thing? Is that what you teach about? What Tell us a little bit about
Mhm.
that in the last few minutes that we have here to
Yeah.
discuss with the listeners. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the daily ground is actually just a component of the intentionality method. So
Nice.
here's what I picture is, can you picture a canoe going down a river? And if we don't be intentional, it's as if we're just floating down a river without any oars. We're just letting life happen to us. We're just going about every wind of doctrine. We're just
Right.
kind of floating down the river. And so, in order to create intention, which is like creating what it is that you want, getting to where you want in your life, there's 3 things that we need. And this is the basis of the intentionality method. You can picture this first oar coming into existence. That is identifying and understanding those protective patterns, understanding your nervous system and how your brain is wired. It's learning how to establish that grounding piece, because when it comes to those protective patterns, it's our we go into survival mode when we don't feel safe. And so when you learn grounding practices, when you do the daily ground, that establishes a level of safety, and there's that anchoring, there's that first oar that you have, so you can
Mhm.
paddle and go the way that you
Right.
want. You've got that
Got to have
capacity,
the
you're
direction,
increasing.
right.
Yeah. And then the second piece has to do with our mindset, our thoughts,
Mm,
because our thoughts is where our agency is first exercised. What we choose to believe, what we choose to think. And sometimes we have default ways of thinking, um, thoughts, limiting beliefs, thoughts that don't serve us very well. Sometimes they even come in the form of sneaky little
mm,
thoughts like, I just want to be a good mom. It sounds like a good thought, but what if that's creating shame or self judgment or overwhelm? Like, it's so the second piece of the intentionality method is to understand our thoughts and how they're creating the results that we are getting in our lives. And when you learn to choose thoughts that serve you better, you can be more intentional in
mm.
your life. Okay.
Love
So if
that.
you've got these two oars, these 2 paddles in this canoe, the last thing we need is a target. I mean, if we don't have a clear understanding and definition of where we want to be, then it doesn't matter where we go. The whole
Mm,
um, what is it called? Alice in Wonderland thing where the Cheshire cat is like, well,
Yeah.
which way do you want to go? And she's like, well, I don't know where I want to go. Then it doesn't really matter which path you take, you know? So it's just having a clear definition of, whatever area of your life. If it's business, it's like, what is your definition of success and fulfillment? Not someone else's, not what you see on the internet or someone flashing their, big success story. Like, what is it for you? If it's with motherhood, what does it mean to be a good mom? Again, not what you see other people doing. Like, who do you want to be? What's important to you? What are your core values? What do you bring to the table? What is going to allow your kids to, have that foundation? Like, do you see what I mean? It's like
Oh,
clearly defining a target so that we know where we want to go and defining it. So
wow.
that's what the intentionality method is all about. Learning how to ground yourself, having a mindset makeover so that you can have thoughts that serve you and have a clear definition of where you want to go, what you want to create in your life.
Wow. That's incredible. Everybody needs that. And
Yeah.
so, how can people connect with you if they want? What's the best way
Yeah.
for them to get
Yeah.
in touch with you if they want to talk about get involved with your intentionality method?
Yeah. The easiest way, of course, is to find me on Instagram. My handle there is at the Michele Reyes. Remember, Michelle is spelled with one L. And you can connect with me there. But even better, I want to teach you a little bit more about the daily ground. I have this freebie that will allow you to watch a video series that talks a little bit more about each of these things, finding that grounding. And you can go to Michele Reyes Coaching, again, Michelle with one L, .com/creating calm. Because again, when it comes to intentionality, we have to begin there with grounding ourselves. If we are feeling reactionary and fight, flight, or freeze, there's no way we can even think about what we want. We're just trying to put out the fire right now, So learning
Right.
how to ground and come to calm with our emotions is the very first step. And that's what I help you do in that little freebie that I have.
Wow, that's so awesome. I love
Mhm.
that. And we'll put that link in the show notes. We'll get that in there so they can see. But
Okay.
this has been so amazing to have you on here. I'm so thankful. I know you're so busy and you took the time to be here to share your intentionality method and other things that are going to make us all better. Like
Yeah.
if we would just even take one thing that you talked about today, I think, I'm sure everybody will agree that it has been so helpful.
Right.
So we're thankful that you have chosen to join us today, and we look forward to seeing more of you and what you're going to bring with your intentionality method and things that you add. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're going to have many people that are so grateful that they listened to this episode. So
Mm.
again, thank you for being on here,
Thanks
and
for having me.
yeah, we'll definitely connect again in the future.
Thank you, Joy.
All right.